This is a project for extra credit at Gwinnett Technical College by me, Raul, for CIS0106 Computer Concepts class, November 15th, 2009. Instructor Norman Elzey. This is about application software, basic video game design. For starting the design, there's some things you have to consider first. The first step to designing a video game is what you need to know and decide about ahead of time. Decide on a programming language, such as C++ or C#, that you will use to design the games, and learn that language as thoroughly as you can. Number 2 is decide on a computer platform, such as a Mac or PC, that you will design games for. Number 3, decide on an operating system, such as Windows or Linux, that you will write the games for. Number 4, familiarize yourself with the application programming interface that is used to write applications for your chosen operating system. Number 5 is learn to use a software development kit that applies to the type of games that you will be writing, such as the DirectX SDK, for example. Number 6, learn to use an integrated development environment, such as Visual C++ 2008, in order to write and compile your game applications. Once the aforementioned requirements have been met, you can begin your game design, which proceeds as follows. Number 1, choose your target audience for your game, such as children, teenagers, or adults, so that you can make your game appropriate for your intended audience. Number 2, decide if a game is going to be single player or multiplayer. Number 3, create a theme for your game, such as space, urban combat, or a top-down view strategy game. Number 4, create some puzzles for your audience to solve that are not too complicated yet not too simple in order to involve the player in your game. Number 5, create a storyline with characters and plot developments, just like in a story or a movie, and work your puzzles into the storyline so that your puzzles have a purpose. Remember, the game is for fun. If the puzzles are too complex or too simple, the player may lose interest. Number 6, decide how your game will function in terms of rules such as gravity, movement, and player interaction with your virtual world. Number 7, create the user interface for the player, keeping the player's ease of use in mind. Remember, the player will use your interface to control their characters and interact with your virtual world. If it is too difficult, the player may lose interest. Number 8, once satisfied with your storyline, you can begin creating media and objects to be used in your game, such as sounds, art, and character models and scenery. Number 9, create your virtual world with the details and objects that are relevant to your theme and storyline, as well as your puzzles. Number 10, be your first critic. After all is said and done, play your game yourself and be the first to look for elements that could use improvement. Let other people play your game so they can give you feedback on it. Number 11, make final changes and bug fixes to your game. One of the major parts of the game is the main loop for the game, which is where all major and considerable functions are coordinated and timed. It is also where you find the game's finite state machine, which is a simple and common way to control the flow of a game by using a limited number of modes that the game can operate in, and choosing the game functions according to the current mode. The current mode is stored in a global variable called GI GameState and is accessible by all functions in the game. The mode is determined by testing the GI GameState variable value. The possible game modes are as follows. Play level. The game plays a normal level where the player must destroy asteroids in order to advance in the game. Play AI. The player must fight the scout ship bosses of the Vortian General in order to advance. End boss. The player has reached the end of the game and fights the Vortian General to beat the game. Level complete. The player has completed a level and will view their bonus scores while the ship flies up the screen. You lose. The player has lost the game by allowing his last life to be lost and is shown the defeat screen. You win. The player has beaten the game and is shown the victory screen. Load screen. The player is viewing the main screen of the game, which is where the menu is, and where the ships are fighting amongst themselves in demonstration. Briefing. The player has just started the game application and is viewing the initial briefing that explains the backstory of the game as spoken by the Vortian General. The conventions used in the game are based on the object-oriented design paradigm in order to make the game easier to code, easier to debug, and easier to read. The game progression is simple. The flow of the game is governed by the finite state machine. Thus, the current state of the game is always in one of the possible modes. As the player progresses through the levels, every 5 levels will allow the player a start point. They can return to that level at the press of a function key, like key F2 for level 10, and return to that level. The levels are calculated by an algorithm to determine when the bosses appear, which is every 3 levels. Without a cap on the level limit, the levels could literally go on forever, or as high as a 32-bit integer can contain a number. Thus I decided to limit the game to 60 levels. Once the Vortian general is defeated at level 60, the game is over, and the player wins the game. I hope you enjoyed the overview of how the game works, and that you understand it and game programming a little better. If you're interested in learning to program or learning to design games, there are many books available on the subject, and most of them are very informative and easy to learn. Some of these books also include CD-ROMs that contain demonstrations, example codes, useful game graphics and sound effects, and bonus material for further learning. Some of the books that I have read and found them to be very helpful: Wiley's Teach Yourself C++ 2007 edition by Al Stevens, Windows Game Programming for Dummies 2nd edition by Andre Lamotte, Beginning DirectX 9 by Wendy Jones. All 3 are great books, and all 3 include a CD-ROM with bonus material. Good luck on your learning ventures.